Oh, it is recording. Okay. Hi, everybody. We were just talking about sleep and our sleep situations, and I was just like, we should record this. So now we're recording it. This is Alyssa. And so, oh, we're so awkward. I love it. So what were we talking about? We were talking about your experience with sleep.
Yeah, I've had some serious sleep issues in the last few months/weeks. And they've gotten particularly bad in the last few weeks. And I have an ADHD coach who I've been seeing for 3-ish years now, since I was diagnosed. And it was bad enough. It's been bad enough that I brought it to him in our session last time. And one of the comments he made was like a big light bulb moment for me. And that is, he asked me, when you go to bed, do you just sleep in your bed? And I said, yeah, I'm pretty religious about sleep hygiene, and I have been for years because I used to be a really bad insomniac.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as per sleep hygiene, one of the rules is that you don't do anything in your bed other than sleeping and, yeah.
Okay, let's just say sleeping and sex. That's
I was like, what? I was like, what? I was gonna be like, bow chicka wow wow, but
yeah. That. Wow. Yeah. So, I was like, yeah, I don't, I don't read in bed. I don't do work in bed. I don't watch shows in bed. And he said, okay, well, that's interesting because I think that for a lot of people with ADHD, the sort of traditional advice around sleep hygiene is counterproductive because often our problem is actually physically going to bed. It is not necessarily once we're in bed that we're awake for hours and hours and hours and are unable to sleep because of that. I used to be like that in college, but yeah, my sleep issues definitely stem now from just not going to bed early enough. And I told him that I often feel like physically unable to get myself off the sofa to go to bed. So he asked me what my nighttime routine is like, and I mentioned that I'll often clean the kitchen and clean the litter box before I go to bed is like part of it. And he was like, okay, well, no wonder you put off going to bed because who wants to do those things? And I was like, yeah, that's a good insight. Thank you. And yeah, what I've been doing is I'll need to go through this sort of almost exact sequence of events as part of this ritual, and often think pretty much everything takes longer than I think it will because I have ADHD. And basically I'll wind up staying up really late doing these things, trying to get everything perfect for the morning, and then I'll get distracted in the middle of it, or I will be like, oh, I need to check one last thing, and I'll sit on the sofa, and then I'll be on the sofa for an hour or more and be like, I need to go to bed. But I will feel so tired at that point that I can't physically do it.
And also, you just told yourself, I need to do this. Those forbidden need and should words.
Right. Which we will
never listen to.
Automatically rebel against it. Yeah. I feel like a little kid who's like, you need to go to bed. Okay, well, I'm not going to bed then. You can't make me. You're not the boss.
Can't make me. Stomping my feet up and down. I don't want to. And I just showed my TimeTimer because you said things always take longer than I think they will. And for that, my time timer has been like a precious gift, because I've figured out, okay, doing my makeup, you get 5 minutes. Set my time timer, and it's in the corner of my eye, and I'm like, okay, 5 minutes for makeup. Or in terms of like getting ready for bed, it's okay, you have 5 minutes to wash your face and brush your teeth, or whatever. And then if I go over time, then I'm like, okay, I give myself 2 minutes. But you know that I'm not.
I think.
Pardon?
I would do that all the time. I'd be like, almost like hitting the snooze button, you know?
Yeah, but for some reason, okay, so like alarms on my phone really, really make me mad. Like, because it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're out of time. And I'm like, oh, like I'm not getting up. But because I could see, I know like when there's 2 minutes left that I have 2 minutes, when there's 2 minutes coming, I'm like mentally preparing myself. Yeah, like time is real with this thing. Otherwise, time is like this foreign language that I don't even know about.
Yeah. Time is a acquaintance.
Yeah. But your Fitbit, you were talking about your Fitbit and like what you discovered about it.
Yeah. So one of the things I brought up before we started recording is that a few months ago I got a Fitbit, and I specifically got it because I wanted to track my sleep and track the quality of my sleep. And I did not want to use one of those programs that require you to have your phone next to you in bed at night. So the first or second week of me using the Fitbit was like by far my best sleep week. Part of that involved going to a cabin out in the middle of nowhere and needing to, or like deciding to not use my phone basically most of the time that I was there. So that probably did something with my sleep. But since then, my sleep has been rapidly deteriorating. But one of the biggest insights I've had since looking at it, tracking my sleep, is that I wake up a lot in the night. I mean, I think people wake up often a lot more than they think they do, because you can wake up for 30 seconds, and if you go back to sleep, you're not going to remember it. But I wake up a lot. And that has meant that when I thought I got 6 hours of sleep because I fell asleep at this time and woke up at this time, I don't actually get 6 hours of sleep. I get 5. Like, it takes an hour away from my sleep time. And I've been thinking about it, and the only thing I could determine, or my theory at this point, is that I'm waking up that often because I can't breathe. And so my body is like, you know, when you can't do something like breathe, you come to consciousness to try to take care of it. And I hadn't really considered that until I started tracking my sleep with the Fitbit, because I don't fit a lot of the sort of stereotypical, I don't fit a stereotypical profile of somebody who has sleep apnea, which is basically a middle-aged, overweight, snoring man. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's like ADHD is the little kid who's running all over the place. The little boy who's running all over the place and can't sit still. Sleep apnea is the snoring old man.
Yeah, exactly. Not old, Alyssa. Middle-aged.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and you know, someone who smokes and drinks a lot, and you know that affects their snoring and their ability to breathe and stay asleep. So I guess I need to get this checked out, because no wonder my sleep has been suffering so much, if that is indeed the case.
And then we were also talking about sounds like, I notice I also don't breathe during the day. And I was like, me too. Like sometimes I'll just be like, like I'm not breathing, and then just try and start breathing. And then we were also talking about, you know, how some people are mouth breathers or nose breathers. And then we were like Sam mentioned that, like, you know, maybe sometimes like one of your your nostrils is actually blocked and you can't breathe that well. I'm like, oh, well, my dad has a deviated septum. Maybe, I do too, and that's why I'm such a mouth breather, which is such a weird term.
Yes, it is. I think when you kind of burst out laughing, I was like, oh, that was probably not appropriate. But yeah. Yeah, I think most people have at least a partially deviated septum where like one of their nostrils is partially blocked. Some people it's fully blocked. And I think those are the cases where they tend to do something more invasive like surgery. But yeah, so that would make breathing an issue.
Definitely.
I don't really know if that's the case for me, but it could be. And actually, I think the way that I sort of started looking into this sleep apnea thing is the other day I Googled, why do I randomly stop breathing during the day?
Yeah, and then I realized that when that happens to me, it's because I'm concentrating on something. And all of this is a weird concept, but is it that all of my energy and thoughts and brain is going into this thought, so I stop breathing? It's very weird.
Yeah, and I realized that from my recollection at least, I notice the breathing thing when I've been intensively doing something, like focusing on something, and at that point I'll be like, oh, I'm either not breathing or I've been breathing really shallowly, and I wonder how long that's been going on for my brain to like kick in and sort of take me out of this focus mode and be like, okay, now you need to breathe, like literally you need to breathe.
Yeah. Please breathe
Yeah. So when I Googled why do I randomly stop breathing every day, immediately all this stuff came up about sleep apnea, and that is like one of the sort of telltale signs of sleep apnea is that you also have trouble breathing during the day.
Also, when I was first diagnosed with ADHD, one of the things that kept popping up all over the place was check if you have sleep apnea.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. I still haven't done it because I don't want to wear CPAP. I don't want to be told that I have sleep apnea and then I have to do something about it. So if I just ignore it, it doesn't exist, right?
Totally. That definitely works.
Plus, I don't want to go somewhere and sleep overnight with all these things attached to my head and ugh.
Yeah, the sleep studies are not fun. But then I think about it, and I mean, sleep has been an issue for me my entire life, and I don't think it's all been related to ADHD and potential sleep apnea. But at this point, I feel like I've resolved the other issues that were impacting my ability to sleep, and these are the remaining issues as far as I know, and they're pretty big. Obviously, like the fact that I lose an hour of sleep a night when I think I'm asleep, but I'm not for an hour. So. Yeah, I don't really want to sleep with a CPAP machine either, but, getting more sleep and better quality of sleep can be totally life-changing. And so, yeah, maybe I'll actually do that.
We should make a pact.
Are we going to be accountability partners for sleep apnea?
Yes. Do you want to be my sleep apnea accountability buddy? What does that mean? So basically we have to both go get tested, or what are we going to do?
Or at least talk to a doctor about the possibility and, whether they recommend doing a sleep study or not. I'm a little nervous about doing that in the States because my experience is going to a primary care physician here has often resulted in a ton of referrals to specialists and testing that I have often felt has been totally unnecessary, and that I think a lot of that is due to how health insurance is structured here.
That's so crazy to hear. So Sam's in the States and I'm in Montreal, Canada, and we have basically like a public health plan type thing, and mine's the total opposite. Like if I go to my doctor, it's like, okay, you have to be put on this list to get your, sleep apnea, and they'll probably call you in a year. Or if you want, you could go private and pay like $2,000 and do all the research yourself.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous to get help. And they don't, if you say, oh, I don't really sleep that well, they'll be like, okay, here's the sleeping pill, rather than, okay, well, maybe you have sleep apnea.
Rather than thinking, okay, where does the sleeping problem originate from?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they do that in the US as well. But yeah, I know what you mean about like the waiting on lists and stuff, because I lived in London for a long time, and I do love the NHS, but I did experience a lot of issues with wait times, and I had a broken foot for a year and didn't know it, and was then put on a wait list for surgery for like another 8 months when I could barely walk. And I think I like broke down sobbing or something when they told me how long it was going to be. And then I think somehow they rejigged it so that my surgery was only 2 months after that. But yeah, the idea of like having to wait even longer was just untenable.
Yeah, I've come to realize, like, in these systems, you really have to self-advocate for yourself and do the research yourself and figure out what's going on. Like, I diagnosed myself with ADHD. I even went to a doctor and said, hey, I think I have this thing. And he was like, no, it's a fad. So
he said it's a fad?
It's a fad. ADHD is a fad. This was when I was like 18. And
oh, wow.
I wasn't in university yet. I was in CJAP. And if you think of it like, basically when like shit hits the fan is when you go into university and CJAP and have to, figure out your own schedule, figure out your own homework, and do all these things. All the teachers in high school aren't in a system together working for you. It's
right.
Do everything yourself. And yeah. So basically, self-advocate. If you know something's wrong, if you need help, if you whatever, don't give up. Keep pushing. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I wound up getting diagnosed in London 3 and a bit years ago, when I went private to a psychiatrist, who was recommended to me by a friend of mine who has several co-current conditions, one of which is ADHD. And I'm really, really, really glad that I saw him. I had been seeing some NHS mental health professionals, and at that point, at least, the knowledge about ADHD in the UK was pretty bad. And they wanted to diagnose me with all sorts of other things that I felt did not fit, including an eating disorder. And I was just like, this is clearly like they're grasping at straws. And it just, my list of symptoms, they were just sort of like, oh, well, that sounds like this. You're not eating enough. Oh, it's not because you have like executive function issues related to like going grocery shopping and actually like knowing how long it takes to cook or whatever, or that's really, really hard for you. It is because you have an eating disorder. And I was like, wow, this is doing, like, it was actively doing more harm than good. And so, like I said, like I'm a big advocate of like public health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
System and being able to access healthcare. But the sad truth is that often mental health and neurobiological conditions like ADHD are not well understood, and that they often take the Bandaid approach, like you mentioned with like the sleeping pill.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like when I went to my doctor when I was diagnosed, she was like, so I assume that you want ADHD medication. And I was like, no, actually, I want to figure out what the heck this is and what this means and how I can help myself outside of the medication and actually understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so their first line of approach seems to be medication. Even before I was diagnosed, I went to her and I was like, I am tired all the time. And she's like, okay, well, let's get you, a antidepressant. I'm like, no, I'm not depressed. I'm tired. And no wonder I'm tired. Like my executive functions don't function as well as neurotypicals. And I'm just like constantly running myself in circles trying to catch up to them and be on an equal playing field, which, by the way, medication can help with. Yeah.
So how is that going for you, if you don't mind me asking? How are we for time, by the way? I don't have the time timer.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, how's that going for you? I thought it would be interesting maybe to chat about it because full disclosure, I'm on medication. I have been since I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed in the middle of grad school, not even in the middle, like almost at the end of grad school. And I was like about to drop out / fail my program. And so I was like, all right, medication, ADHD coaching, like give me everything you got, basically. Because I was just like, I need this to work quickly. Mm-hmm. But I do think that perhaps at a different point in my life where things felt sort of less urgent, that maybe I would have taken the non-medication approach.
Yeah. I'm a person that like needs to understand everything. I don't know if you know that, like with that 4 tendencies quiz, but I'm a questioner. So I need to like understand. Yeah, I'd love to know what you are. So basically like I need to understand everything and I ask a bajillion questions and yeah. Why did I say that? Because
you need to
that's why I'm not on medication, because I needed to understand how I was without medication and what ADHD was without medication so that I knew what it was when I was on medication, which I have not tried yet. But it's okay for me because I control my schedule. I have say over what happens and what doesn't happen in my days. That's huge for me. I would say that the impact that my ADHD has on me the most so is like emotional regulation and RSD. And I can tell you 100% it's related to hormones, like my monthly cycle. Like the week before and during is just like the week before, it's like I don't have any sort of working memory. So it's really about like making systems for myself and habits that I could rely on, and people to help me to remember things and support me. And yeah.
I do think that medication does help with, or can help with, the emotional aspect. But obviously it doesn't address the hormones. I should say ADHD medication doesn't address the hormones, as far as I know.
So I've done like a little bit of research on that, and basically when your estrogen is low, okay, do your own research on this, but this is what I understand. When your estrogen is low, your dopamine will also be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And dopamine is what we lack anyways.
And your estrogen is low, like right before your period?
Yeah, the week before it starts to drop.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happens in menopause.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely been looking into that quite a bit. I'm a little bit older than Alyssa. And I am wondering what's coming in menopause. Not that I don't think it's gonna be happening anytime soon, but you never really know. And I think that actually a lot of women in that age group will get diagnosed because basically like any kind of coping skills that they had developed in the earlier part of their life just completely fall apart at that point. And I think, they've got to have amazing coping skills if they didn't get diagnosed until they were like in their 50s and sometimes in their 60s. Much more amazing than my coping skills were, apparently. But,
I have a post that I did as a joke that's like, my coping skills are so on point that it took 26 years for me to be diagnosed.
I think I saw that.
Yeah. I like that one.
But yeah, so people or women in that age group will, when they get diagnosed, it's because their symptoms have gotten so much worse since they hit menopause. That they're like completely debilitating. And I think I know some women who've gone on hormone replacement therapy to treat their ADHD symptoms. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. We kind of went off topic of sleep.
Yeah. I mean, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I actually totally don't remember how we got here. Medication or not medication.
Oh, we were talking about doctors. That's what it was. Yeah. Self-advocate. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, we transitioned okay. That was
yeah, I mean, I definitely think self-advocating is really important. And I do think that if you are, having a mental health crisis or feeling particularly vulnerable for any reason, that also having someone who can be with you and advocate for you is also a good idea. I know that when I was particularly in a bad way, that if I had to advocate for myself and my partner wasn't there to advocate for me, that I don't know what would have happened. And it was helpful to have my partner there in the appointment sometimes so that he could see, the way I was being spoken to, and that what I was saying was not being taken seriously, or was, they clearly like had an agenda. And I say that not in a like, oh, evil, like healthcare providers. I mean, I think healthcare providers are often amazing. But that in a system where ADHD is not well understood, and it is, people, healthcare providers, especially mental health providers, often have no experience with ADHD, no training about what it is, or are told that it is, not real. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that, like, you know yourself better than anyone else. Your doctor sees you for, I don't know, my doctor sees me for an hour a year. She doesn't know me. You know you. So if something doesn't sit right, if something doesn't feel right, if you don't want medication, or if you want medication, whatever it is, whatever you want, do it. Make sure that you stand up for yourself. Yeah. I like that ending.
I like it too.
All right. Well,
I know.
I'm glad that we talked about sleep and all the other fun stuff.
So
yes,
I guess maybe everyone who is listening or can listen to this might be our accountability buddies too, because now I feel like I really need to go do it and report back.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you want an accountability buddy to go get, tested for sleep or whatever, just let us know and you could hop in our accountability group.
Accountability train.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That's what I thought you were gonna say. And yeah, okay, that's funny.
We're already finishing each other's sentences.
We're discussing.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.